Hi, everyone. My name is Sheila Hosner, and I'm helping today to present to you the idea of scope, which can be used for project scope or research. I focused on project scope because in Uganda, I'm working with a community called the Bukobero community to help them build a health center. And this scope is based on the project, the Bukobero Community Health Center. I lived in Uganda for almost 3 years, where I worked in the western part of the country at the Bwindi Community Hospital. And when I was there, I also met people from the Baduta region, and this is where this clinic will be located, or health center will be located. Project scope, what is it? Its purpose is to take a good look at your project and imagine or list out the goals, the deliverables, the features, the functions, things like that, so that you, before you start on your project, you have a good idea about what you want to accomplish and what needs to be done. It's often the first step in setting your project goals and objectives. Why do you need a project scope? I'll let you read this yourself, but you want, and most importantly, to define the boundaries of the project. The boundaries, defining the boundaries of the project will help you eliminate what's called project creep. And if you don't define the boundaries of your project, you're likely to go over them, and your project will creep. It will get bigger and bigger. This way, it helps you stay within the boundaries that you've defined. And you can see on this slide some other reasons that you need a project scope. It helps you list things that will limit your project, like how much money do you have? It helps you list assumptions that you assume will be in place when you're doing a project. Like for us, an assumption will be good weather when we're building. It also helps you identify your stakeholders, the important people that you need to keep informed about your project. You know, for a team, if you're working in a team, often with research you're not, but for a team, it helps you come to a common understanding of what you're doing. That way, each of us isn't deciding in our own mind what we think this project is. And it's extremely important that all your team members are on the same page and they understand what the project is going to do and who it's going to help, that kind of thing. It provides a roadmap for managers that helps to stay on schedule, to assign tasks, and set the budget. As I said, I'm working with a community in the Baduta region, and this scope is based on this real-world project, the Bukobero Community Health Center. It's in Bwale Sub-County in the Baduta District of Uganda. And let me be clear, the health center has not been built yet. The community and I are working together to raise the money, to organize, to build this. But we've done a lot of groundwork. We've met with local government, we've been raising money, and that kind of thing. This slide talks about the Baduta District. So one of your, I think it's important for research or project scope is to understand where you're doing it and why you're doing it. And this describes the region, what's important about putting in a health center, why it's so important in this community, and how it will be used. And you can read this slide to determine and understand the background for the project. And this again is a description of the Bukobero Community Health Center 3, what it will be, and an artistic drawing of what it will look like when it's completed. Developing the project scope for the Bukobero Community Health Center, we had to look at these elements: the need, the description, the objectives, deliverables, using the SMART attributes to determine, and in the next page we'll talk about what SMART means, to determine our objectives. Assumptions, constraints, exclusions, and approvals. So these are things that are included in a project scope, and these can all be applicable to a research project as well. So what do I mean by SMART? You may have already heard about this, but these are very common criteria when you're defining project objectives or deliverables. They need to be specific. Objectives and deliverables need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be achievable. They need to be relevant to the project, and they need to be time-bound, that they can be done in a certain amount of time. So when you use the SMART criteria, you can go back and really determine if you achieved your objectives and deliverables because you used these criteria. So this is a sample project scope format. And you can see how on the left side, I've put the project need, the project description, the objectives, the assumptions, the constraints, and the exclusions. And in the project need section, I've partially filled this out so you can get the idea to see how to do it. And I would suggest that this is a good format for you if you're doing a research project or you're doing a real world project. Set out these criteria for these assumptions or criteria for your project scope in the beginning, and then try to fill out the information that you need. It will help you really conceptualize what you're trying to do. So you can see in this first box, I've put in some of the information that you saw in the earlier slides. It talks about the need for building this clinic. Why is it necessary? And we discussed some of the health disparities here. And I've left you some other potential, you can put other reasons in here that you might need the project. So go ahead and try to do that yourselves. Try to add some project needs and some other things. So I've just started this out for you so that you can then try to fill it out yourself. And so as you can see, a constraint was something that limits your project. As I mentioned before, a budget is constrained. What else do you think could be a constraint? And I put in assumptions that we will have labor available. Again, we are assuming that labor will be available. Another assumption might be that materials will be available. We'll need bricks. Will they be available? And so go ahead and think to yourselves, what other assumptions are we making about this project? And I think what's also very, very important is to look at what the project won't do. So that helps you prevent scope creep. This project will not be addressing staff housing. And that's really important to understand what it won't do. Staff housing is expensive. That would cause a lot of scope creep if we were expecting that to happen. So I suggest that you consider this, and just for your own benefit, try to think of other reasons that would fall under all these categories. Some of the literature that I used when I was researching the need for this project are listed here. These were all really important for me to determine the need and other elements of the project scope. For example, the National Health Facility Master List. That helped me determine where the other nearest health centers are. And from that, I determined that there were only 2 or 3 health centers in several sub-counties surrounding this project. The population and housing census told me how many people we'll be serving. The Boali sub-county is a very small sub-county, but it's surrounded by 4 or 5 other counties that themselves do not have health centers. So it's very likely that those people will also be coming to this health center. Using the population and housing census helped me determine that. So there, you know, these are just some examples. These are all available by just doing a Google search, and you can use these kinds of things yourself. So here are some examples of what I learned from doing this literature search and this literature review. It talks about, and then again, these go into the need for the health center. They talk about the poverty of the area and the average income of the area and the growth of the population. And what is one of the things that's really needed is family planning in this area. So again, the literature review helps you determine the need. And this is talking more about the literature review. There's only 24% of the births in this area occur in health centers or are attended by a medical person. I'd like to introduce you again, give you a little more information about myself and David Wamawaya, the clinic director. He will be the future clinic director. David Wamawaya is from the Baduta area. He's a nurse with 10 years experience. He's currently working at the Bundi Community Hospital, which is where we met. He will be the clinic director when we finish building the clinic. And this is some more background information about myself and my education. And I have a Master of Science in International Health and a diploma in Tropical Medicine and Public Health. And if you'd like to learn more about the Bucobero Community Health Center, this is our website link right here, and that will tell you more. And if you're interested in contacting me to learn more, there is an email address for me on the website. Thank you again. And again, my name is Sheila Hosner.